Is crack worse for a person than marijuana?
I believe all illegal drugs are bad.
Is methamphetamine worse for somebody's health than marijuana?
I don't think any illegal drug
is
good.
Heroin worse for someone's health than marijuana?
Again,
I mean, either yes, no, or I don't know. I mean, if you don't know, you can look this up. You should know this as the chief administrator for the Drug Enforcement Agency. I'm asking you a very straightforward question. Is heroin worse for someone's health than marijuana?
All illegal drugs are bad.
Does this mean you don't know?
Heroin causes an addiction.
Okay.
That causes many problems. It's very hard to kick.
So does that mean that the health impact of heroin is worse than marijuana? Is that what you're telling me?
I think you're asking a subjective question.
No, it's objective. Just looking at the science, this is your area of expertise. I'm a layperson, but I've read some of the studies. I'm aware of it. I'm just asking you as an expert in the subject area, is heroin or someone's health than marijuana?
And I'm answering as a police officer and as a DEA agent that these drugs are illegal because they are dangerous, because they are addictive, because they do hurt a person's health.
So heroin is more addictive than marijuana? Is heroin more addictive than marijuana in your experience?
Generally, the properties of heroin, yes, it's more addictive.
Is methamphetamine more addictive than marijuana?
Well, both are addictive.
Your top priority, I believe you indicated to us, is abuse of prescription drugs. Is one of the main classifications of prescription drugs painkillers that you're concerned about?
That's correct.
And are those painkillers addictive?
Yes, they are. Very addictive.
Are those painkillers more addictive than marijuana?
All illegal drugs are in Schedule 1 are addictive.
And I'm asking, again, clearly your agency has established abuse of prescription drugs as the top priority. Is that therefore an indication that prescription drugs are more addictive than marijuana?
All illegal drugs are addictive.
Okay. Would your agency consider supporting medical marijuana provisions when that can be used in pursuit of your top priority, which is reducing abuse of prescription drugs? If it can be documented that the use of medical marijuana helps reduce the abuse of prescription drugs, is that something you're willing to pursue?
Well, Congress has determined that marijuana is a controlled substance, and DEA is tasked with enforcing.
Yeah, but you mentioned priorities, though, and you said top priority, reducing abuse of prescription drugs. One tactic to do that would be use of medical marijuana, and I wanted to make sure, again, top priority. In pursuit of your top priority, are you willing to look at the use of medical marijuana as a way of reducing abuse of prescription drugs?
We will look at any options for reducing drug addiction.
Mr. Botticelli, how many marijuana overdose deaths were there in the most recent year you have available?
To my knowledge, I don't know if there have been instances of specific overdose-related deaths.
Clear. I'm trying to trap you.
No.
How many marijuana deaths have there been in the last 5 years?
So if you're referring to overdoses, I am not sure of those numbers.
What is more dangerous and addictive? Methamphetamines and cocaine or marijuana?
So, I don't think anyone would dispute the fact that there's relative toxicity related to those drugs. But I'm afraid,
what's more dangerous and what is more addictive? Cocaine and meth or marijuana? Pretty simple.
I think that conversation minimizes the harm.
No, I'm not trying to minimize the harm. I want to know which is more dangerous and addictive.
Again, I go back as
as
a public health person. One of the things that we look at is not what's the relative risk of one drug.
Let me just say, if a professional like you cannot answer clearly that meth is more dangerous than marijuana, which every kid on the street knows, which every parent knows. If you can't answer that, maybe that's why we're failing to educate people about the dangers. I asked
drugs.
what was more dangerous. You couldn't answer it.
No.
And I just want to say that you, sir, represent what's part of the problem. Let me go a little further.
So, sir, that's
Let's
exactly
talk
not
about
what I'm saying.
what kills more people, tobacco or marijuana?
There's been a fair amount of tobacco-associated deaths. My challenge, and the reason I'm hesitating about answering the questions as it relates to relative risk, is I think many times that conversation gets distorted, that there's no risk, that there's...
I'm not trying to trap you.
No. But this is why,
suggesting that there's
Representative,
no
I don't
risk.
want to be disrespectful.
Let me suggest that your inability to answer me whether tobacco or marijuana is more dangerous, again, is part of the problem.
But our efforts ought to be toward meth and heroin. That's where efforts should be. And it shouldn't be Schedule 1. Anybody that goes to jail for marijuana is a crime when people for possession are taking their liberties away. It's a waste of money. It's a waste of resources. It's a crime committed by our government. There is a cultural lag in this country, and this Congress is a leader in it. With all due respect, you should be listening to scientists. I understand the parents who are grieved because their child died of an overdose. They didn't overdose on marijuana. And you're listening to them rather than the scientists? Mr. Botticelli, it may go back to A Few Good Men, the movie, Jack Nicholson. You can't handle the truth. The truth is the drug war failed. Your direction on marijuana is a failure. What percentage of your budget goes towards heroin addiction?
So I don't think we necessarily slice our budget, our demand reduction budget, based on drugs. Again, our prevention efforts are focused on preventing drug use.
Isn't that a mistake when people die from heroin in great numbers that the Vermont governor spends his entire state of the state on heroin use? And we don't distinguish and try to save people's lives? That's when you knock people over at the corner store. It's not to get money to buy a donut because you're high. It's to buy heroin because you're hooked. That causes people to die.
Our office in 2011, I think, acknowledged the burgeoning prescription drug and opiate epidemic that we have in the United States. In 2011, we released a plan that looks at dealing with the prescription drug abuse and opiate issues.
Let me ask you, my time's about to run out, and it may have. Let me ask you one thing. I corresponded back in 2011 with I guess your predecessor, Kirliowski?
Kurlikowski, he's actually the current director now.
Is he? He said back then that there was no particular, they haven't found any medical use. To date, however, the FDA and the Institute of Medicine have not found smoked marijuana to be a safe or effective medicine for any condition, nor has any medical association come out in favor of smoked marijuana for widespread medical use. I think that medical associations have, but are you not aware of the fact that people use smoked marijuana to get them through cancer treatment, nausea?
I do, sir, and it's never been our office's position to either to arrest people who've been using medical marijuana. I think it's important for us, and again, unfortunately, that the FDA is not here. That it's the FDA process that ultimately determines the scientific efficacy of a.
But couldn't you try to influence it? Shouldn't that be part of your job? Well, let me ask you this: you are prohibited by law from using any funds to study marijuana legalization for medicinal purposes or any other reason. You're the only office in the federal government that's restricted in that way, and you're required to oppose any scheduling of Schedule I substances, rescheduling like marijuana, that have been approved for medical purposes. Aren't you troubled by these constraints, and don't you think that your expertise should be allowed to be used and study science and contribute to a positive classification of drugs?
So I'm not familiar. Congress put that language in our reauthorization, and I'm actually not, I don't know the background of that.
Would you support legislation to allow you to participate and to voice your opinion and to use science as a basis for your determination?
Well, what I would do is support that federal agencies have the ability to do that. So
yours is prohibited by law. Should that restriction not be lifted?
Again, I think we'd have to have subsequent conversation in terms of.
You mean you think you should be muzzled?
I think that it's important that our office not involve itself in terms of given legislation or given activities. And I believe that that was the genesis for that language, that the office not involve itself in state
But the
and local
totality of the
political
drug world,
processes.
you need to participate. And if you realize that medical marijuana, as 20 states have found, can help people with cancer, with nausea, with those maybe glaucoma. I mean, Montel Williams apparently has some benefits from it. Lots of people do. That you should be able to participate and set our drug policy straight. Your job should be to have a sane drug policy, not to be muzzled and handcuffed.
Yeah. From again, my standpoint, and I'm happy to engage in fuller conversation, is that that has not handcuffed other offices and other federal agencies who are tasked with that work from investigating.
In 1971, Congress created a commission that was headed by Governor Schaefer of Pennsylvania to study federal marijuana policy. That commission came out in favor of decriminalization, but it wasn't put in place. That was 1971. Would you support a new commission to study federal marijuana policy?
So I haven't seen that legislation. I'd be happy to have further conversation.
Would you? It's a concept.
Again, I think we'd be happy to have a conversation in terms of what that might look like.
Thank you, sir, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Well,
thank you, Mr. Chairman. Right. So you're going to have to do. So if the fact that meth or crack or heroin is causing the most damage to individuals, if that's not the number one choice of the crime syndicate, it's not your number one choice. Your number one choice is the crime syndicate, not the fact that heroin and meth and crack are destroying people's lives?
No, not correct. The organizations now they're polydrug. So for instance, the Colombian cartels, which are a priority,
right, they have all these drugs, right?
Are the primary source for methamphetamine, cocaine, and a good amount of the heroin on the streets.
Right.
They're a priority.
So that's your number one priority, is going after that cartel.
Our number one priority is going after those that most impact the United States.
And do most
right
of those
now,
cartels emphasize, what are the drugs they emphasize in their arsenal?
The Mexican cartels, polydrug, it's cocaine, meth, heroin, marijuana.
Right, marijuana is fourth. Would you agree that marijuana causes less harm to individuals than meth, crack, cocaine, and heroin?
As a former police officer, as a 32-year DEA agent, I can tell you that I think marijuana is an insidious drug.
That's not the question I asked you, ma'am. Does it cause less damage to the American society and to individuals than meth, crack, cocaine, and heroin? Does it make people have to kill to get their fix?
I can tell you that more teens enter treatment.
Can you answer my question?
Addiction.
Answer my question, please.
I'm trying to. It causes harm because it's young people that are using it. If you're talking about the
it's
violence,
not just young people, but you're trying to answer the question like I'm Jeff Sessions. I'm not Senator Sessions. I'm asking you a question. Does meth, does crack, heroin cause more damage to society and does meth and heroin cause more deaths than marijuana?
all drug trafficking causes deaths. I don't have a breakdown of how many
Aspirin,
deaths.
does aspirin cause deaths?
I'm talking about the illegal drugs. I don't have a breakdown for you of how many deaths are caused by cocaine and how many are
Let me ask you
caused
this.
by
Have you ever
meth.
seen a person who had cancer and used marijuana to help them eat or to alleviate their condition of somebody suffering from terminal cancer?
No, I have not.
And if you had, and I have, and seen that it helps them with their appetite and makes them smile, would you agree that it has some benefit to society for somebody who's dying, maybe a Navy SEAL who spent his life working and defending this country and is emaciated to 120 pounds, and that marijuana is the only thing that makes him eat and makes him smile, according to his 80-year-old mother? Is there not an efficacious situation there?
I think that's between him and his doctor.
Well, if it's between him and his doctor, why does the DEA take a position that medical marijuana is wrong, which you've taken? You've taken the position it's not between him and his doctor. You have a publication, which on page 6 of your publication in 2011 has the most insane and banal paragraph. The legalization movement is not simply a harmless academic exercise. The moral danger of thinking that marijuana
Gentleman's
is...
time has expired. The gentlewoman from California, Ms. Chu.